Welcome back to my channel. Let's slide over here. So not all my settings are dialed in, but a lot of them look like they're working pretty well, because the last time in my life that I was doing a lot of streaming was in this office with this screen, with this setup. Yeah, so it seems like it might work pretty well. I'm not going to get to do a lot tonight because it's late where I am, but I just wanted to sort of run through what I was doing earlier today when I stopped and just sort of make sure this thing is on, tap, tap, tap. So I'm Amitai. I do a lot of open source development. There are three main things that I work on, and probably the biggest one, the most often, is package source, which is a cross-platform Unix package manager. I use package source because I came up on NetBSD, and it was the package manager that came with NetBSD. That's sort of how it started. But how it's going is that just like NetBSD, the operating system is portable to extremely many types of hardware. Package source, the package manager, is extremely portable to many types of operating system and platform architecture. And I came up as a sysadmin, so anything that I can learn that gives me leverage in a lot more situations than just the situation that I'm in is a win for me, and package source is that. That's not to say that on a Debian system I won't use apt, or on Red Hat I'm not going to use DNF or anything like that. Excuse me. It does mean that if I'm in a situation where I want the same stuff made in the same way, managed in the same way, on a variety of operating systems, then my problem is solved. And even if that's not true now, if it might be true later, then it's nice to use that technology to begin with. So I just really like package source. I've invested a lot in it. I've been a package source developer for 20 odd years at this point. Doesn't exactly make me an expert, but I'm fairly competent in my small areas. And one of the things I do is I'm a package maintainer. We have 20,000 plus packages in the system. I'm just one guy, but I maintain 150-ish packages. And so that's what this is about right now. I was looking at an update to the Python implementation of approval tests. I saw that there was a new version upstream. Llewellyn Falco and whoever else was ensemble programming with him came up with a new release. They often do a weekly Sunday session, and most of those culminate in a new release. So usually when I see that, it's an easy update. I go into the approval tests makefile, which is how package source represents the package metadata. I bump the version, fetch the new tarball, make sure that, anything that changed is anything that should have changed. And then, take a snippet of the change log for that version and commit it. And then everybody who's using package source current, the up-to-the-date version, instead of a stable version, next time they do a build, this is the approval test that they'll get, just like if they did a pip install, except from package source for reasons that a package source user would want. And this time it was different. It had a couple new dependencies, and not all of them were in package source already. So this got a little recursive, because then one of those dependencies needed a new dependency, which wasn't even in package source WIP, the sort of user contributed package in progress holding area, where often things that are there are just about ready to go into production, into the mainline package source. So for the direct dependency that was missing, that one is in mainline package source, but it was too old. It was in package source WIP, meaning it was probably pretty close to being workable. I had to update it to meet the dependency requirement for approval tests, and that update added more dependencies, and some of those dependencies aren't there. So that's where I said, I got other things to do today. I'm going to take a deep breath and come back to this at a different time. But I do have to come back to it because a very strongly held value and belief of mine is that whenever there are updates in things that you rely on, the way to live with them is not to defer dealing with those updates as long as possible and then encounter a large pile of change, some of which might disrupt you, and then you have to figure out which. It's to eagerly incorporate the change. And that way, the time that it disrupts you is also a narrow space in which to understand what changed. And you don't have to spend a lot of time understanding. Well, between, 8.4.0 and 8.4.1, my stuff broke. So what changed in that version? That was it. I don't have to do a big binary search. And then, because I've encountered the problem as soon as possible, I have the maximum amount of time as possible to decide strategically what I'm going to do about that. And this goes for any kind of dependency. So, of course, as a package developer, dependency management is high on my mind, but this is also to do with agile software development, extreme programming. If extreme programming were being defined today in a world where dependencies are combinatorically exploding, I think it would have to say something about how you manage them. And I think what it would say is that you pin the versions, so you know exactly which versions you have, and you will repeatedly get the same build every time, instead of whatever is the newest at the current moment. Then you bring those numbers so that they are the newest at the current moment. Make sure everything still works. And then you do what you have to do to make that kind of an update not interesting. You bump some numbers, you run some tests. If they're green, you're probably fine. And you go to production. And if that's fine, you are fine. And then the unhappy path is, ideally, you have tests that fail when the dependency breaks something that your production code was going to rely on. And so you find out instantly, not in production, even before that. That's perfect. Now you got all the time in the world. Second best is that you made a small deployment to production with very few changes, including the dependency change. And so you don't, like I said before, you don't spend a lot of time figuring out what it was that broke. And again, if you have a fast rollback, that's nearly as good. So I feel pretty strongly about this, especially as a package maintainer. I must not let this sit. Not okay. On the other hand, I must not do something at an unsustainable pace, which would mean working late into the night in my time zone. So I just want to make sure, I'm not going to do a lot more hacking on it today, that I have my rig working, that I have sound, that people can hear me. I'm a little worried that something is muted.